and gentlemen, it has gone 9 o'clock, and I would want us to start our meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Let me make use of the opportunity to welcome all of you, honorable members, as well as staff members that are part of this meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to look at the report to be presented by the Western Cape Education Department, as well as the report that will be presented by the Forensic Department of the Western Cape. Also in attendance will be the Auditor General of South Africa. As we are going to start, can I get an indication of the honorable members that are present?
Good morning, Chairperson. I'm Gillian Bosman, happy to join, and I'm joining on behalf of Member Matloli Maseko as an alternate. Nice to see you again, Chair.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Honorable Paspan.
Good morning, Chair. Andrikus van der Westhuizen, a member of this committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable van Westhuizen.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Derek America, a member of the committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable America.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Melika Yatrego, member of the committee.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Honorable Member. Mr. Davids, is there any indication of apologies?
Morning, Chairperson. Morning, honourable members. Chairperson, just an apology from Member Mainir, the new Minister for the Education Department. He is unable to join us this morning, Chairperson. Thank you.
No problem. Of course, the honourable from the apology from Honourable Maseko is also noted as well.
Yes, Chairperson, that's also noted. And as the Honourable Member Bosman indicated, he will be standing in for Member Maseko.
No, thank you very much, Mr. David. Now, honourable members, I am going to let us go straight to the presentation. I think the manner is going to take place. We are first going to get a presentation from the Western Cape Education Department. Now, what I'll do, I'm sure are they already in the meeting, Mr. David?
Yes, Chairperson. I see Mr. Brent Walters, the HOD is in, and Mr. Eli, the CFO is in, and as well Mr. Archie Lewis, and then Mr. Harun Mohammed and Erna Feldman. They are all in, Chairperson. And I see the AG is also in, Chair. Mr. Adil Blow is in, and then we have Mr. Lutando. Mr. Lutando is also in. He's the Senior Manager for the Audit for Education Department, Chair.
Thank you very much. And also, I think then if the department is in, what I'm going to do, then I'm going to hand over to the HOD, as it has been reported that the minister is unable to attend. So I'm going to hand over to the HOD to give some introduction and also introduce the team that is with him, and thereafter we go straight to the presentation. HOD.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to all the members. Good to see you again, Chairperson and members of the committee. So we have members of our senior here today. We have myself, we have Mr. Eli, who's the CFO. Then we have the DDG, Mr. Mohammed is here. DDG, Mr. Lewis is in the meeting. Ms. Erna Feldman, Chief Director of Finance. Ms. Washila Shari, who's Director in the Finance Division, Internal Control. She's also in the meeting. And I think I've covered our delegation inside the meeting, Chairperson. So the purpose of today, we've been invited to Scopa brief, as per the report that SCOPA had put out, we must come back on certain matters. And we prepared a presentation, Chairperson. Mr. Eli will do the presentation, our CFO. And just brief words. Thank you for the opportunity. And with your permission, Chairperson, under your direction, I'll ask Mr. Eli to do the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Udi.
Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Don Eli. I'm the CFO for Education Department. I will now I'll turn off my camera and I will then share the presentation with you. Okay, Chairperson, can I have an indication whether the members can see the presentation?
From my side, I can see it.
Yes, you can.
I just want to put it into presentation mode. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Just to say that we did send the presentation through to the committee, and also in terms of the other information that's required, that's all been submitted to the Secretariat. But for today, 25th of May, we will present our the resolution as indicated in your communication with the department in terms of report back around matters pertaining to the audit report. So I will then go through that. So just again, Chair, we're looking at the financial year for 2020-2021, and then the matters as reported by the Auditor General in their audit report, the matters pertaining to the annual performance matters, which is in note 18 and note 19, 20, 22, 20, and 30 and 32 of the annual report, and then also the matter around the audit of the financial statements as a matter that was non-compliance, also relating to note 30, 31, and 32. And so the presentation, this is the outline of the presentation, and we'll touch on those particular matters, and then we will then welcome questions on behalf of the committee then as well. So if I can then go on to my next slide, just in terms of your resolution, that the Education Department must brief the committee on the findings and how we will prevent a future recurrence of these particular findings as well. So that's the resolution as given through by SCOPA. I think, Chair, if I can start off with the first one. The first one was relating to what we call PPM 208, and it dealt with the matter of textbook, the reporting of the textbook indicator as per the annual report, and it's in the audit report as well, Chairperson, in terms of that indicator, in terms of how we, it was to do with the receipt of textbooks by learners in grade 3, 6, 9, and 12, and the related indicator around that. What the AG found is that the supporting documentation relating to that performance indicator was not sufficient for them to reach a conclusion on that particular matter. So what the department had to do was to put obviously plans in place to make sure that in all of our 1,500 and odd schools, that there are controls in place to ensure that they report accurately on the issue of textbooks for those particular grades as well. So the department has done that. So what we have in the department, we have what we call a CMIS system. It's called the Central Education Management Information System, which means that all the schools have access to the system, and we use the system we use the system so that schools can load information on there. And that information we use at district office and at head office to retrieve particular information. So on that system, they will load what we call the textbook reports to say, this is the textbooks they have, and these are the textbooks that they've issued for those particular grades, and that gets loaded onto the system, and that information is then available to head office, and we can monitor it from head office level and district level in terms of what's happening at the school. Then, Chairperson, also obviously into a particular framework as well, so that we, that we all understand what is all about, from head office and district level. As you know, textbooks can also be seen as an asset, and it's got a useful life as well. So from that perspective, we drew up a textbook retrieval and retention management plan that was developed for schools and implemented. So this was disseminated to our particular districts for implementation also at those schools as well. Because Chairperson, as you know, that once you issue textbooks, you also have to make sure that you retrieve those textbooks, because your government paid money for those as well, and that the next grade can use it as well. So that minimizes the expenditure in terms of the replacement of textbooks in those particular grades as well. We've also issued Circular 28 of 2020 to schools to guide them in terms of the management of textbooks. That means the issuing of textbooks, the retrieval of textbooks, and then just the replacement of textbooks as well, and also the storing of textbooks as well in those particular schools as well. We've also then established committees out to what we call learner transport, learner teaching support material at school. So we've established committees that can monitor, the management of textbooks at schools, and that was also incorporated into the School Plan in Canada as well. That can also assist schools as well. We have also developed a what we call a SOP, or Standard Operating Procedure, to assist governing bodies and then school management teams to manage those particular aspects as well, and the whole issuing, retrieval, and just monitoring of textbooks at schools as well. What we've also done, Chair, is not just to let the controls sit at school level, because we've got quite a big span of schools out there, in terms of 100 odd schools out there. So we have to make mechanisms to make sure that we can monitor what's happening in the schools. So in the districts, we have staff members that normally inspect schools and monitor schools for financial controls, and also our circuit managers that go visit schools as well. So our officials in districts will also, as part of their visits to schools, to monitor the financial controls in schools, will also monitor to see if the schools have indeed implemented some of these controls and processes, so that we just could get assurance that this is indeed happening. These reports from the districts are also get monitored at head office by the chief editor for districts. CD monitors what's happening in the districts, and therefore what's happening in schools in that regard as well. So we have some level of oversight in terms of what's happening in this particular area. And so Chair, so just in terms of that, this is being monitored. And again, it's wide in terms of the scope. And we hope that we've dealt with this particular matter. And then also, one of the last things we did was we also got a learner teacher support material framework as well. That was also amended and updated to deal with some of the recommendations and findings by the AG, and that was also included into our in terms of our plan as well, in terms of the actions that needs to be done there as well. So as you know, Chair, in the past we've asked that parents sign for the receipt of textbooks, but in this particular case we've amended that particular control to make sure that there are other controls that's a bit more easier to implement, to deal with the same type of control there as well. So, Chair, if I didn't move on to the next reporting item in terms of the audit report. Chairperson, this particular matter dealt with the finding by the AG that the department submitted its financial statements late which means after the 31st of May. The legislative date is the 31st of May. The departments must submit their financial statements, and the AG had a finding that we submitted it 3 minutes past 12 on the morning of the 1st of June. That was their finding, and the scoper wants to know how we will prevent the reoccurrence of this particular finding. So I think, Chair, what we've done this year is to make sure, because part of the process last year, due to COVID, is that we made arrangement with the AG that we will do an online submission to them, and I think that's where things went a bit, where the non-compliance issue arose. So for this year, we're going to go back to the old method, but to get there, and just to make sure that we do submit our financial statements on time, we've put certain controls in place. Sorry, Chair, before we get to that particular matter, this slide still deals with the performance indicator, or the performance indicators that was in notes 19, 21, and 22. That dealt with the underperformance. Chair, I'm going to just say we're going to get to the issue of non-compliance with the financial statements, but I was going to deal with the other finding. So this one deals with the performance indicators, where we've had underperformance. And so what we've done this year, Chair, relating to this slide that's on there, we made sure that those indicators that's in our annual APP or annual performance plan get submitted on a quarterly basis to our top management team and to our AC to monitor the progress around those particular indicators, to make sure that we don't underperform, and if there are underperformance, that we can put mitigating actions in place to make sure that we can still meet those targets as well. That gets monitored also quarterly by the Director of Business Strategy and Stakeholder Management. That person is responsible for the reporting and compilation of performance indicators, and that person then reports appropriately to those particular structures, as I've mentioned. There was also a training done for the responsibility managers, where there might have been areas of uncertainty or things that they don't necessarily understand in some cases, or where they had questions. So that was also done by the Director of Business Strategy and Stakeholder Management. And then also the one thing that we've done also is that the annual performance indicators form part of our department register. So that then is in part of the highlights in terms of making sure that we give attention to those matters also at other fora as well. The one thing, Chair, that does have an impact on our annual performance indicators is also the impact of COVID, because there were impact at a school level where we up to a couple of months ago, if I'm not mistaken, we were still on the rotation basis, which means that learners were rotating due to COVID and the regulations around that in terms of social distancing. So those things we've taken into account also with the monitoring and in some cases the possible underperformance as far as particular targets is concerned. We have engaged with the Department of the Premier to also get their guidance around us dealing with areas that might concern us or might require adjustment due to the impact of the pandemic on our operations as well. So that is just around those performance indicators where we, in the past, the AG reported which we had underperformance and sometimes in some cases overperformance as well. So those dealing with that particular matter, Chair. And moving on to my next slide. So Chairperson, on this slide, we are dealing with the findings that deals with the submission of the financial statements, as I previously mentioned. that the AG had a finding that we didn't comply with a particular regulation or act in terms of the PFM Act, in terms of the submission of the financial statements by the 31st of May. We then had to make sure that we do not, repeat the same finding. And so what we've done is we've put mitigation controls in place. And I'll just take you through that in terms of to make sure that we do not have the repeat finding in that regard as well. Again, like I said previously, Chairperson, that last year we had the issue around the pandemic, and then there was some agreement between us and the AG that we will submit the information electronically. And then we experienced some systems issues, and that resulted in the department not being able to submit within a particular time period. And this year we've agreed with the AG that we will go back to the normal protocol of doing it manually to them. So we will submit physical documents to them, and then they will sign off on that. But before we get there, Chair, we have to go through the process of making sure that as a department, we minimize any risk of late submission of financials, and we had to put our controls in place and make sure that we monitor those controls, and so that we have like a roadmap, what we're following to prevent a reoccurrence of that. So what we've done, Chair, the annual financial statements is the end of the process, but in the meantime, we've also submitted quarterly reports. So in terms of quarterly reports, we've submitted that to our Provincial Treasury, and there's proof of that. They do a review of that, and they give us feedback. Although it's not the full set of financial statements, because there are only certain things we can report at year-end, but the majority of matters that we report on, we do submit quarterly. As I said, Provincial Treasury does an assessment on that, and they give us feedback, and that we also give to our audit committee as well in terms of proof of submission. So the purpose of quarterly financials is to if there are issues with the template, or there are issues that we can already foresee that we can address that with Provincial Treasury already during the course of the year. Or if there are technical issues with the preparation of the financial statements in terms of the numbers or format, that we can pick up those errors or challenges during the course of the year, and then not wait for the end of the year to deal with those aspects, because those aspects can sometimes, the size of the department can take up a lot of our time. And so the strategy here is to minimize potential challenges at year end, and therefore minimize the risk of the late submission. We also have a control list of inputs that's been managed and tracked, especially at year end, Chair, so that we can monitor because we have like a timetable to then say, okay, people must submit certain things at a particular date for all the various sections that are to complete. And then that gets monitored by the Director of Financial Accounting and the Senior Director Financial Management. So they manage that particular process. So there we also can then see if there are particular risks there or challenges that we might want to deal with. Because if there are challenges there, we don't want to be surprised to see that there are challenges, and then it can possibly derail the issue around the submission as well. Then, as I said, our Senior Director for Financial Management, she monitors the weekly feedback around that to see that we are on track and that we can submit by the 31st of May. And in terms of that dates, we have dates set as well, particular minimum milestones, which she then monitors as well to make sure that we remain within a particular time period. And then, Chair, if we come back to part of the current process, because the financial statements is due by the 31st of May, which is next week. So we're already in that particular, soos in Afrikaans sê, dat pylvak, but we're already in that particular line of delivery now already. So we have submitted our progress, our draft financial statements to the audit committee, which is on Monday. We already submitted that to them on Monday. And then the status update was reported to the CD Financial Management Director. So they have so by the 27th, we will have also an indication of where we are. So Chairperson, I can already say that at the moment we've got all information to our disposal. We are currently, for this week, we are busy with the checking and the quality assurance of our financial statements before we submitting to our head of department for sign off. So we already in that particular phase for this week, we'll be busy with quality assurance. That, Chair, compared to last year, we determined some of our inputs in our process and involvement around that to minimize particular disruptions. So compared to last year, we are a bit more advanced in terms of our preparation of financial statements for the year end 2021-22. We already advanced it, so we are busy at the moment with quality assurance. And again, Chair, just to reiterate the fact that the financial statements, we are seeing our audit committee tomorrow, and then they will review our financial statements as well. That's part of the quality assurance process, but it's also part of the monitoring by our audit committee. And as you know, Chairperson, our audit committee is an independent body. They are the members are members from outside the government, and they are not on our payroll, but they are completely independent. So that's happening tomorrow. So I will, again, me and my colleagues, we will present the detail anyway around the financial statements. So yes, Chair, we're well on our way to submit the financial statements by the 31st of May. We have made arrangements again, just to reiterate, we've already made arrangements with the Office of the Auditor General to deliver to a particular person and the protocol around that. So, and also by a particular time period as well, or particular time during the 31st of May. So that has all been already cleared with the agent's office about what's going to happen on that day. We've also cleared it with the HOD when he will sign off. So that's all been set out in terms of the process to minimize the risk of a late submission of financial statements for the financial year 2021-22. Chairperson, that is the end of my presentation and end of the brief in terms of the committee's request. So we welcome to take questions from the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellie. Can I get an indication from honorable members whether are there any, before I allow the honorable members, I just want to check first, the AG, are there any addition or any comments that you'd like to make, any input from your side? The Auditor General?
Thanks, Chair. Adewale here for the Auditor General. I think at this stage there's no further input from our side. We don't have anything contrary to report. We are currently busy with the audit, and I think we'll then refer our feedback to the post-audit feedback that we normally give in terms of when we've had a chance to test the operating effectiveness of these measures, and then yeah, I think those arrangements, as Mr. Eli has indicated, have been made. So we look forward to receiving those financial statements at the 31st of May, and then furthermore, we also then look forward to testing the effectiveness of those measures that the CFO has put in place. Our teams are on the ground at the moment. And we're planning school visits towards this month and early next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, are there any questions, point of clarity or comment on the presentation that was made? I see Honorable van der Westhuizen. Please go ahead, Honorable Member.
Good, thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. And I'm deeply aware that the officials in this meeting are under very strict timelines to submit in a few days. And thank you very much, therefore, for this presentation and for the time coming to this committee. I do hope that in future we will be able to welcome the Minister at these meetings as well. Chair, I think while obviously the focus today is on the accountancy side and on the asset management, etc., I cannot, unfortunately, deny that the main purpose of the education department is to educate. And I'm concerned because I used to work for the education department in the Directorate of Quality Management for a number of months. I'm concerned that with the emphasis on being able to account for textbooks, that we will find the situation which I found in my time with the education department, that many textbooks are never distributed to children, but are being kept under safe lock in the school's safes. And as an educator, I want to believe that to entrust learners with books and to expect of them to care for those books and to look after it and so on is a very important educational principle. So my question is just, in terms of this new retention, retrieval and retention management plan, what is in this plan to ensure that schools do not fall back into this pattern of keeping the books in their plastic wrapping in the safe, but to ensure that these books are handed out to the children? Because I want to make the point that if you have a loss of, let's say, 5% or 10% of these assets over a year, that the benefits, the educational benefits exceed the financial losses, because people, young children, primary school children, high school children, they need to learn to look after goods. And in many cases, those textbooks are, I almost want to say, the only brand new items that they are often issued with, that they can feel special, that they've now received something nice and shiny and something that they can be proud of. So can you assure me, with my educator hat as well, that this management plan would not prohibit the usage of these books just for audit purposes? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable van der Westhuizen. Honorable America.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm mindful of the fact that this is an extraordinarily huge department. It has a wide reach with a budget of over 25 or 24 billion rand. So my question, Chair, in terms of the remedial action that the department has taken with regard to the matters raised by the Auditor General, I just wanted to know whether we have a member of the Audit Committee in this meeting, and if so, whether they have been sort of appraised about these internal control measures that's being implemented, and whether they are reasonably satisfied that some of the findings that the Auditor General raised will not reoccur. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from honorable members? If there are no further questions, just maybe from my side, just a couple of remarks and maybe comments as well. Maybe the department or the Auditor General can actually respond to this. Firstly, let me just make use of the opportunity to thank the department for responding positively to the findings, because I remember when we said, one of the questions I personally asked was that how are we going to prevent the reoccurrence of the late submission? Although it might sound very minimal, but of course it's a very important aspect in terms of auditing the issue of compliance with time. The response, we got a very encouraging response from the HOD, saying that without any much explanation, it's not going to happen again. That to me was quite encouraging. It was a symbol of positive response that the department is cooperating with us. It was nothing defensive, nothing explanatory, but it was just a clear response that it's not going to happen. I'm happy with the explanation that has been given so far, that we are working quite hard to make sure that that does not repeat itself. And I think one of the explanation you given was that it was because of I think it was a couple of minutes really you were late with, but it was also due to the online submission. Now this time you are saying you are going to go back to the traditional way of submission, which is going to be manual, in other words, by physically handing the document. Is that not going to also pose some problems, or you are going to make sure that you are doing this maybe a day before? I'm not sure. It will be good if you can just maybe just elaborate a little bit for me on that. Now, of course, the findings to the department was to the effect that it was a finding that had certain, it was an unqualified with certain findings. Now, of course, unqualified, but then one of the remarks we received from the last time, I would like also maybe to hear what the AG is going to say on this. Because when we're trying to make an issue about the fact that about the unqualified report, the then minister, unfortunately, she's not here with us today. We are saying that it's only a South African thing that we make a big issue about a qualified report. Internationally, it was something that is not really an issue. I really would like to get a response from the AG regarding this matter, because we really want, because we are always striving that the department must always, all our departments in the province must have clean audit. We want that, unqualified with no findings, Now, if we are going to be told that, no, look, we are making an issue over nothing because international best practice show that, look, I think the exact response was that it's only in South Africa that we are making a big issue about qualified findings. So I would like to get a response from the AG regarding that. Other than that, I think I'm fairly happy with the explanation that has been given. If from other members, are there any follow-ups? We will allow those follow-ups. Can I hand over to the department first?
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Lewis and Mr. Eli will assist with the answers. But maybe just to deal with the question of the manual, for us to give the manual financials. I think the reason that we can the manual, Chair, is that there can then be no misinterpretation of time and place and date and so on. That we know that that is actually in the AG's hands. So just to say that, and thank you for acknowledging that we said it won't happen again. And I think you can see from the presentation, we put in place the mechanisms to ensure that it won't happen again. And the colleagues on the line will tell you, we have been speaking about this in the management meeting and outside of the management meeting. So clearly, from a management point of view, we've given it attention, and hopefully, well, we know that's not going to happen again. So I think that's fine. I think the second point, perhaps, that I just want to respond to, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Eli will also come in. I think the second point is just on the issue of the textbooks. So essentially, at the school level, obviously, we distribute the textbooks. The schools ask for, make orders for certain kinds of textbooks. They get those textbooks. In some cases, if there are textbooks that are not being used, clearly those must be brought to our attention. But our understanding is that there should be a textbook in every child's hand. Now, some schools chairperson work in different ways, given the operational realities on the ground. For example, if a school has a situation where they know that they're given out textbooks and not many come back, or the children don't bring it to school, some of those schools will actually keep those textbooks in safekeeping, and then when it's lesson time, take it out and give it to the children. Of course, I know that Mr. Van der Westhuizen didn't mention that. He spoke about stuff in plastic wrapping, which obviously we need to look into. And if there are specific cases, obviously as a department, we can look at that. But I think what we have done is we think that we've placed the controls, made them more realistic in relation to the finding. Because one of the findings that we had in our control was that every parent will sign. And clearly, just if one parent doesn't sign it to the 1.12 million children, then clearly we can have a finding. So I think we've adjusted the controls. But I think we will again, I think as a department, take that comment on board in relation to the textbooks, and obviously make sure that people do use the textbooks. In other schools where they're confident that they will get the textbook back, the children will bring it to school on a daily basis, they issue those textbooks to children, and children then carry them to school. So the material conditions differ from place to place. Those are just the 2 points I want to make. If I can ask Mr. Lewis and Mr. Eli to also come in on things that I potentially may have missed out. And then just to clarify, I know you asked the AG that question about clean audit, but maybe just to clarify, I think in my memory serves me correctly, it was about that other countries of the world don't distinguish between unqualified with findings and unqualified with no findings. They just have unqualified. It's unqualified audit. And that's really then would be past muster. So I think that's just to say, I think the previous minister was indicating that the unqualified with findings and the unqualified with no findings, being spoken about as a clean audit. She had in that meeting said that was something that planned to be just happening in South Africa. Anyway, okay. So maybe Mr. Lewis, over to you, and then Mr. Eli, if there's anything you wish to add. If I've missed anything.
Thank you, Etchi, and good morning, Chair. Good morning, members in the committee and other stakeholders. In the education departments, there are things that we are fully in control of. And then there are things that we try to exercise control over. So when Mr. Eli indicated that we will make sure that our financial statements will be on time for the AG, though that's one of the issues that we have full control over and we can do it. When we deal with textbooks, that is something or an element in the sector that we try to exercise control over and to limit or decrease, any issues that the AG is unhappy about. The textbooks is quite a complicated area, and I just need to lift out certain realities, which makes it extremely difficult for us to fully control what is in each school. The one is that schools have the opportunity to order textbooks during May, June. In other words, this is the time when schools have the opportunity to procure their textbooks. If schools procure their textbooks now, then they're procuring the textbooks with projected numbers for 2023. In other words, the school is not absolutely certain that I will have 100 grade 1s next year, 400 grade 8s next year. It's projected numbers. That is the one challenge. So they order the textbooks. The second one is that the school uses 50% of their norms and standards funding for LTSM. So depending on the quintile of the school, the quantum of that 50% of the norms and standards differ, but your learner numbers remain the same. I mean, the school with 1,000 learners in quintile 1 will receive much more money than a school with 1,000 learners in quintile 4. But both schools must procure books for the same number of learners for the same subject areas. Hence, we will always have the situation where certain schools do not have sufficient money to order a textbook for every child. In this case, the focus is, however, on English textbooks and English first additional language textbooks. But I think that's a point that we must, and a reality which makes it difficult for schools to ensure that in the hand of each child is a textbook per subject, or in this case for the 2 subjects. Now, this projected number of textbooks, which is ordered in June for January, gets further complicated in this province by the number of new learners coming into the province annually. We've got 18,000 new learners coming into the province every year. We do not know exactly at which school they will pitch up and which school will enroll them. But the moment those learners land in January, February in a school, the school unfortunately must make provision for those learners for textbooks. So you can see, I don't want to elaborate along on these realities that we must deal with. About 6 years ago, there was an audit report which indicated that the AG went to schools and they find textbooks in the storeroom still packed, like Honorable van der Westhuizen has indicated, and not used. And the AG at that stage issued us a finding to say that those textbooks in the storeroom still packed is fruitless expenditure. Why does the school order textbooks and they don't use it? Now that is the difficulty. Schools are projecting learner numbers for the next year. Now if your learner numbers drop and you have ordered the textbooks in June, by January you are sitting with some of those textbooks in the school. But those textbooks are not fully fruitless, because the next year your numbers in that subject, in that grade might increase, then you have those textbooks. That's how principals manage the school. So the management of textbooks in the school is not a simple matter. There are various factors that play into it, and that's why I'm saying we as the education department sitting at head office will not have full control over this in schools, because it differs from school to school and it depends on the variables that I've given you now. Having said that, we will ensure that as far as possible that learners do get a textbook in the hand, and that we see that the systems that we've put in place, that all the role players, and especially on the school with your LTSM committee on the school and the senior teacher in charge of the LTSM, that we comply and that we try to especially at the end of the year to retrieve as many of these textbooks and get it back for use in the school. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Ellie.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Just around the question of Honourable Member America around the functions of the Audit Committee. The Audit Committee meets quarterly, and part of the obviously the Audit Committee reports to the HOD, gives progress there. But the Audit Committee also reports to the MEC on an annual basis, and also to SCOPA as well. So that is their function. They will also prepare a report for SCOPA as part of the annual report as well. So I think Mr. America will also see their report and assessment of their or their view of what's happening, because the audit report, Audit General also reports to them, and also internal control and internal audit and forensic also reports to them as well. So they do an assessment of their own in terms of the mitigations that the department has put in place, mitigation measures, and the progress being made around that. So on a quarterly basis, Chairperson, we submit to the audit committee our progress around audit findings, whether that's now internal audit or the AG matters. So this particular matter that we're discussing today, or these matters, they were served, these were briefed to the audit committee. Maybe in a summation, it's quite a detailed report in terms of all the findings, and then they will read through that, and then they will pose questions to the department, and again they will do their own assessment around the progress around either AG matters or either internal control, internal audit matters as well. So there is a process in place around the monitoring these particular progress, and then that will be contained in the annual report, which SCOPA will then have access and will see in the annual report. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellen. I see Honorable Maseko.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson.
Are you joining us from? Oh, we got an apology from you. Okay, no. Welcome.
Yeah, I thought that we will finish up late, but I managed to join in.
By all means, welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thanks for having me, and I'm sorry for joining a little bit late because I was not going to be in. But I just wanted to find out the issue of the books. If the reason of sometimes you'll find that the books, and it's just for indulgence, and bear with me, Chairperson, the quintal allows a certain percentage, that 50%. Now, when does the schools collect the data in anticipation? Because I tend to believe that by now, statistically, it's showing that how many students are extra that comes to A school or B school. Now, if you have another school that you will find that there are books that are stored, and then the other school doesn't have the books, is there a system that the schools have communication that they can do to make sure that maybe they can borrow each other the books for the sake of the kids to have the books? Like the system that is used in health, that you'll find a clinic doesn't have the medication, can go and borrow the medication from another clinic for the sake of the patients there. And this quintal, and I've never looked at that. Also bear with me, Chair. When is decided versus the data collection of the students in a school, how long does it take before the school can be changed on the quintal that they are to be upgraded to another one as per the demands or the numbers of the students in a school as the numbers they grow for that non-paying, non-fees paying schools? I think that's all from me, Chair, just for an understanding. I'm sorry about that.
Thanks, Honorable Maseko. I see Honorable Keko.
Thanks, Chairperson. Mine is on the clarity about, firstly, the the textbooks, that some learners do not return to school. And then what I wanted to understand is on the issue of, let's say learners come back to school. I understand with those learners who do not return back the following year. Now I want to understand with regards to learners who return back to school without the textbooks, and then who are indigent beneficiaries in terms of their guardians and all that. Now, I want to understand, does the school maybe impose a certain compensation that needs to be paid in order to recover the lost books or what? And then secondly, on the issue of the functions of the audit committee that they are doing on a regular basis. Now, I want to understand if, for example, there are inconsistencies in terms of the expectations. Does the department or the audit committee advise the department before consolidating the findings and maybe await rectifications before the final report is submitted? Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Can we get responses from the department?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. If I can suggest that to my team that the question about the quintile system, that can be answered by Mr. Eli, and then I think also just in terms of the question around the audit committee, that can also be answered by Mr. Eli. The questions around the textbooks, if they can be answered by Mr. Lewis. Maybe we can start with Mr. Eli and then move to Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I can just talk about the quintile system. The quintile system is a national policy. It's governed by National Treasury. The National Treasury brings what we call out a resource targeting table. And then according to that, our schools get classified and then ranked also into what we call the quintile system. So, for example, we have 5 quintiles, and all provinces do it, not just the Western Cape. All provinces do the quintile system, and just over 40% of our poorer schools falls into quintile 1, 2, and 3. So the bulk of our schools falls into the quintile 4 and 5. The significance of the quintile system is that what we call the non-standard allocation to schools gets given according to that. So quintiles 1, 2, and 3 gets equal allocation in terms of per learner allocation, and then quintiles 4 and 5 obviously gets less. But given the economic situation in this country over the past number of years, the department has allocated more schools in quintile 4 and 5 as what we call no-fee schools. So they also receive what we call the non-standard threshold amount, which is a national determined policy by DBE in terms of the amounts. I think the latest one is just over 1,400 Rand per learner. I can give the committee an update around that in terms of the actual figure, but it's roughly around there. And then, but apart from those schools that we classify as no-fee schools in quintile 4 and 5, we obviously give less non-standard allocation to the other schools in quintile 4 and 5. It should be said that the Western Cape province and Gauteng, is seen as the richest provinces in the country, and so therefore most of their schools will lie in quintile 4 and 5. In other provinces, they will have more of their schools in quintile 1, 3, and 4, or percentage of their schools in those particular quintiles. So the quintile systems, again, has got to do with the poverty ranking of schools, and that is governed by DBE, and we are complying with the national policy, according to that. And again, just to reiterate that as part of the mitigation to deal with the economic climate, we have allocated more schools as no-fee schools in quintile 4 and 5. Thank you, Chairperson. Then in terms of the audit committee, if I understood the member's question correctly, the audit committee will compile their report after they've seen all the final inputs from the assurance providers, and then they will draw in conclusions based on that. They will then put that into the annual report. They will also come to SCOPA, where SCOPA will be allowed then to pose questions to them in terms of their briefing. And if there's anything else, they will then also brief and respond to SCOPA in that regard. But that will be an independent opinion, and it will be based on the information that's been submitted by the AG, internal audit, forensic services, and also internal control as well. I hope I've responded to that member's question, because I wasn't too exactly sure what the person or the member was referring to, but that's in terms of the final issue around those reports as well. Thank you, Chairperson.
Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Maseko, you are right. There's a lot of goodwill among schools on the ground, and on a continuous basis, schools are created where if one school has got either books or even furniture, and there's a need at an adjacent or another school, then our district officials and our circuit managers will assist in sharing those facilities. However, the one school will not give the books or the furniture to the other school. They will borrow it. And the reason for the borrowing is that those textbooks and furniture are on the asset inventories of the school, and they are responsible for it. But that is happening on a continuous basis. Just the other thing that I need to mention around textbooks is, although schools are now busy ordering your textbooks for next year, the department has got a little bit of money which we keep for growth. In other words, there is provision in the new year to provide those schools where there is growth, to provide them with some funds so that they can further top up their textbooks. However, that growth budget is not sufficient to deal with a learner growth of 18,000 a year. So we will always have shortages, and hopefully when there are somewhere savings throughout the year, we will see how we can further assist schools with textbooks. So it's an ongoing process. And then Honorable Plejo, do schools get compensation if learners lose their textbooks? The answer is no, unfortunately not. Neither can the school demand that funds from the parent, because our parents in many communities are poor. They do not have that money. So that's a loss to the state, but unfortunately it's a book or books lost to the school, and it further complicates the textbook situation at the school. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Any further follow-ups or further question, honorable members? If there are no further questions, then honorable members, are there any further comments, maybe from the department or from that they would like to say? HOD?
No, Chairperson, I think we covered at this point. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity.
AG, are there any comments that you'd like to make?
Thank you, Chair. I think just to answer, I think your question that you did pose to us. In terms of in comparison to international practice, the one thing that I think is different for South Africa in that respect is our legislation requires us to report on these three matters. So the first is the financial statements, the second being compliance with the legislation, and the third being performance information. So when we come to this committee, later on in the year, the committee will then pose the question to us, has is the financial statements that the Scopa committee is looking at, are they fairly stated? And then our report will report whether they fairly stated or not, either saying that there's a qualified or unqualified report and so forth. Second part is, as the department complied with the legislation, and that we also then give an indication of we didn't have any findings or we had findings on compliance with legislation. And then the third one is obviously the annual report contains the performance of the departments, and the department would then be able to say, at least the committee members would then be able to say, does this annual report that they are presented with by the department, is it actually is what stated in that report true in terms of their performance, and that we give an indication of when we report whether there were any findings on the performance information. I think how well they do against that performance is up to the committee then to take that matter forward. But those are sort of the 3 assurances that the Auditor General is able to give in their audit report. And that's required from the legislation, and that's maybe the difference. How the committees deal with that information and how parliaments deal with that information is obviously up to the committees and the parliaments and the governance structures. But we report in terms of our mandate, and our mandate requires us to report on those 3 areas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blue. I think, honorable members, if there are no further questions or comments on the matter, let me make use of the opportunity to thank the department as well as the AG for their presence and also for the presentation of the Department of Education. Also to say that, as I've indicated in the beginning, that the department did give us an assurance the last time, and it was quite a very positive cooperation that in terms of the lateness of the annual financial statements, that's actually not going to happen. And then also, as you have seen also in the presentation that has been given there, they've tried to answer most of the questions that we have actually tried to have. And also say that I must say most of the time when we are going to, it's also, I would like to thank the department for actually giving us some of the reports, the presentation timeously, which is something that is very rare experience from other departments, because most of the time you either get the reports from the departments a night before or actually in the morning. So at least the reports and the presentation that we got now were sent, I think, fairly timeously to members, and members had an opportunity to familiarize themselves with the report. I would like to thank the department very much for that, and hope they will continue doing that with us moving forward. Thank you very much, the department. You may be excused, and then we are now going to allow the next presentation. If there's anything that you'd like to say, HOD?
No, just thank you, Chairperson, for the comments, and thank you for the spirit of the engagement today. Obviously, we're a large system, as has been said before. We try and keep all the moving parts moving in the right direction. And I think one of the things, thank you for recognizing the fact that, we are actually trying to make sure that we deliver on the mandates that we have been given. And I do assure you of best effort from all the colleagues on this side, but thank you for the oversight, and thank you for the spirit of the conversation. Wish you well for the rest of the day. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Judy. Thanks. Mr. David, is the forensic available? Are they already on the...
Chairperson, thank you. I see Ms. Henriette Robson, the DDG, is in the meeting, Chair. And Mr. Ruthven Janse van Rensburg is in the meeting. Mr. Janse van Rensburg, he will do the presentation, Chairperson. And yes, Ms. Hansby is in the meeting, Chair. And Ms. Bridget Sebekulu is in the meeting, Chair. So the Provincial Forensic Services is in the meeting, Chair. Thank you.
Can I hand over then to the department, whoever is going to do the presentation and introduce the rest of the team. Over to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. So, Chair, I am Henriette Robson and I am the DDG of Corporate Assurance. Forensic Services falls under me. As Mr. Davids has indicated, Mr. Ruthven van Rensburg will do the presentation and he can introduce himself when he starts the presentation. So, Chair, we are ready to go and I'm handing over to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Henriette. And good morning, Chairperson and members of the committee. We thank the committee for this engagement with you and to account to you on the work that we've done for the first half of the previous financial year. Just a note, this presentation will deal with the investigations conducted by Provincial Forensic Services, or PFS as we say it in short. But there's also a lot of proactive work that is done by this unit on anti-fraud and corruption awareness, fraud risk assessments and detection and measures, just as a note. But before I proceed and upload the presentation, Honourable Chairperson, I would like to just introduce the colleagues, the head of the directorates, who is joining us here, and I will maybe defer some of the more details to them if necessary. I would like to just give a face to the two heads, and it is Wendy Hansby. I don't know, Wendy, if you can just, there you go. Thank you, Wendy. And then also Bridget Sebekulu. Bridget, are you in the meeting? Maybe there's some technical problems at the moment. So, Chairperson, please just give me a few seconds to upload the presentation. I hope I'm still audible.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. van Rensburg.
Thank you, Chairperson. So yeah, the committee asked us to brief it on the work done during the first and second quarters of the previous financial year. First off, we are going to deal with a caseload reconciliation. Now, this is for that period, for that 6 months. As you can see, at the beginning of the financial year, we had 20 cases on hand under investigation at the time, and then during these 2 quarters we received 15 cases for investigations, and we during these 2 quarters also finalized 16 matters. And as at the end of 30 September 2021, there were 19 cases on hand, I beg your pardon, 12 of which were under investigation. Okay. Okay, so this slide deals with the cases, just to give you a glimpse of the cases that were on hand at 30 September. What happened to it, you might ask yourselves, and this slide just give you a glimpse of that. 10 of the 12 cases that were under investigation at that date had been finalized towards financial year end, with 2 of them being carried over to the current financial year. If we go to the next slide, it deals with the 16 cases finalized from 1 April 2021 to 30 September 2022. You will note here that it involved 7 departments, provincial departments, and the second last column reflects the investigation outcome of those forensic investigations, and the last column also some detail about the financial implications of those investigations. But we will discuss the detail of this as we deal with each department. The next slide is a high-level outcome of the finalized cases of all these 16 finalized cases, reflected on that graph. And if you to summarize the graph is, in 3 cases we found non-compliance with prescripts. In 7 cases we identified there were no adverse findings, but in 4 of those 7 cases we nevertheless made recommendations to improve controls. As we investigated, we detected some gaps in that respect. And then towards the bottom of this graph, in 6 cases we identified criminality, that is fraud, theft or corruption, with appropriate recommendations then. Of these 16 finalized cases during the period that we are talking about now, this slide reflects the recommendations that we made in the reports on those investigations. So that is a summary of that. And as you can note, there were 19 recommendations made to take disciplinary action. And we've reflected on this slide as at financial year end, what was the progress in implementing those recommendations. And it's reflected there towards your top left-hand side. Then during this period, we also made 31 recommendations to improve the control environment, to address certain gaps or to prevent matters from happening or reoccurring, those incidents. And then in 3 cases, we made 3 recommendations to take civil action, and most of the time that relates to recovery of losses to Western Cape government, or the restriction of companies who had been involved in some of these cases. And if I can move on to the next slide, Chairperson, this is in 5 cases that we finalized, we lodged cases with the police, that is with the Hawks or the DPCI, to take the matters into the criminal justice system and the necessary accountability in that respect. Now, if I may proceed, Chair, with the individual departments to give you some detail around that. Firstly, we deal with the Department of Health. In that matter, we finalized 3 cases, forensic investigations during this period. In 1 case, we found fraud and non-compliance. In another, fraud, corruption and non-compliance, and in the third, fraud and irregularity. Now, this slide reflects then the recommendations that we made in those 3 cases. We recommended in 2 of the cases, no, I beg your pardon, in those cases, we made recommendations to take disciplinary action against 13 individuals. Now, the status is reflected there as at financial year end. You will notice, for instance, that in one case we indicate there that recommendation was not implementable, and as we follow up on our recommendations on a quarterly basis to the departments, but the department advised that that official was no longer in the service of the department. In the other 12 cases, I can say that the disciplinary actions are in progress, and our investigator who conducted those cases was during this past quarter or during this quarter quite involved testifying at those disciplinary hearings. That is just by the way. Then if we move on to the control recommendations that we made, 4 of them have not been implemented yet, and 3 of them were implemented by financial year end. And then the 2 civil action recommendations, both have not been implemented yet. The criminal cases, as I indicated, there were 3 matters, and all 3 cases were reported to the police for further action. Then if I may proceed to the Department of Education. In that case, so we dealt with 4 cases involving the Department of Education. In 2 cases, the investigation did not find any adverse contraventions, but we nonetheless made recommendations where we felt that there might have been control gaps. In one case, there was no adverse findings, and in one case, we found fraud and theft. So the recommendations that flowed from this, from these investigation reports, was we recommended in one case disciplinary action, and it was implemented, is our information and the feedback that we got from the department. And we also made 4 control recommendations, 2 of which have not been implemented yet. 2 were in fact implemented and confirmed by the department. Criminal cases, the 1 criminal finding we reported to the police, as in the case of the Department of Health. Then moving on to the Department of Transport and Public Works, we investigated 2 cases, and in both those cases there were not adverse findings made, so there were no recommendations accordingly. In the case of the Department of Human Settlements, we dealt with 3 investigations that we completed. In one case, we found non-compliance. In another case, irregularity and non-compliance. And in the third matter, there was no adverse finding, but we nonetheless made the recommendation to improve controls. This slide again deals with the recommendations made. So we made 3 recommendations to take disciplinary action. By financial year end, the department reported that 1 was implemented, and in 2 cases the department advised that they took a decision not to implement the recommendation. In the case of 12, we made 12 control recommendations. 10 were implemented. 1 not yet implemented by financial year end, and in 1 case management decided not to implement the recommendation. We also made 1 recommendation to take civil action, and that recommendation was implemented by the department. Moving on to the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, we dealt with 1 case during this period, and we found irregularity and non-compliance. Chairperson, we made 1 disciplinary action recommendation, which is not yet implemented, and we also made 3 control recommendations, also by financial year end, not yet implemented. Then the Department of the Premier, we investigated 1 case, and we found fraud, irregularity and non-compliance. We made a recommendation to take disciplinary action against an official, and by financial year end, that recommendation has not been implemented yet. We also made 3 recommendations to improve controls in that environment, and the department advised that all 3 of those control recommendations were implemented. Yeah, I may say, and maybe if I can just go back, or yeah, to the so this case also affected the Department of DDAT, Economic Development and Tourism, in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, but we're monitoring it in that department because it's on their books. Then the Department of Agriculture, we dealt with 2 cases. In one case, the investigation revealed no adverse findings, but we made recommendations to improve controls. And in another case, we identified fraud. And following those investigations, we made 2 control recommendations, and of which one was implemented and another not yet implemented by financial year end. The criminality aspect of one of the investigations, we proceeded to report it to the South African Police Service. And Chairperson, that brings me to the end of the presentation. I'm happy to assist the committee with any questions that you may have.
Honorable members, can I get an indication of questions? I see Honorable America. While waiting for, or see Honorable Van der Westhuizen, in that order.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Chair. I'm very encouraged by the manner in which these disciplinary infractions are being approached by the unit, and I'm particularly pleased about not only the recommendation for certain actions that the department needs to take, but also the recommendation of measures to improve the control environment in which these particular infractions often occur. So that's very encouraging, Chairperson. My question is, in terms of the matters that were referred for further criminal sanction with the South African Police, are those employees, let me put it this way, what sanctions were sort of taken against those employees within those departments, those 5 cases referred to? And then secondly, if we could be, appraised in terms of whether it is possible, of course, what the status of those 5 criminal cases are. And then thirdly, in terms of the Department of Local Government, does this particular unit serve as a service department for investigations with regard to the municipal environment? If so, perhaps at a later stage, Chair, we could be briefed upon that particular environment and the work that the unit is doing on that front. Thank you, Chair. That's all for me now.
Thanks, Honorable America, Honorable Van Vesthuizen, and Honorable Kego after you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And again, thank you very much. I must say, I think the importance of the work of these people cannot be underestimated. I'm on record of saying, you will never have a big organization where nothing will ever go wrong. But it's the way in which you respond when things go wrong that really differentiates between good organizations and great organizations. So thank you very much for leading the province in its response to these investigations. My question is regarding the case where, and there are probably more cases where the official has left the department. I do know that in terms of the national effort to fight corruption in the public service, that there have been some measures put in place to ensure that even where disciplinary hearings are not concluded, that that information will be put on record and will be passed on to avoid the situation where people that find the heat a little bit too much in one department then moves on to another department and perhaps then repeat his or her conduct in the new department. So I would appreciate it if we can be assured that in that case, the case was not just dropped, but that at least some action was taken to ensure that the fact that there's an unfinalized disciplinary has followed that particular official who has been put on the file or the records of that official, or what may be the case. What are we doing from the Western Cape's side to try and get repeat offenders to account for their actions? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Kego.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think I'm partly covered by Honorable Van Vesthuizen as far as to the question around civil action recommendations. But what I wanted to understand is that, in particular with the officials who have already left the department, those are cases that are mostly very difficult because the employee is no longer there. But now what I wanted to understand is that how effective is this process in recovering the loss compared to the monies that are incurred by the department during the course of the legal process? Because you would find sometimes that the department would go after an employee, but somehow you would find that they leave the case because it becomes costly to it is even more than the loss that the department initially incurred. And also, are there maybe in terms of findings cases where you would find that once a finding is made, such an employee is being blacklisted, so that such kind of conduct would not be able to continue? Because like Honorable Van Vesthuizen has mentioned, you would find that the person who sees that I'm going to be caught here, then runs to another department, and then from there another, especially at a municipality level, you will find an MM was found to have misappropriated the money and then moves from one municipality to the other without just with impunity. So I just wanted to check the effectiveness of this entire process. Thanks very much.
Chairperson, can I proceed to respond? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Okay, firstly, the questions, Honourable America asked 3 questions. in terms of matters referred to the South African Police Service, what is the status of those cases? So these are fairly recently reported to the South African Police Services, the 6 cases relating to this period. So they, by financial year end, they were still under investigation and in process towards the prosecuting authority. We do follow it up quarterly by engaging the investigating officer, and some representatives of PFS also meet quarterly with the Hawks to establish the status of the cases and also to establish whether there's any further assistance that we can give to them. But those 6 cases were still ongoing, the investigations, and it has not reached the court stage yet. Then the question regarding employees having been found on wrongdoing, and I think the Honourable Tehu as well as Van der Westhuizen touched on that aspect, and I'm going to try to deal with it in one. Those employees, you get 2 scenarios. The one is if they are still in employ of Western Cape government, then steps can be taken from a disciplinary point of view, and due to the contraventions that they have breached the code of conduct in terms of the public service regulations. In this period of review, most of the persons that were involved in criminality, from the top of my head, had, when the investigation was unfolding, they resigned. They are no longer in the system. But in terms of a sanction against them, it's twofold. Externally, we pursue those criminal matters, and if they are found guilty in the criminal justice system, then they have a conviction. If they try to come back to the public service, there is a vetting procedure in place with recruitment and selection, and then they will not be readmitted to the public service. If that is not an option, that is why, or if that process takes very long, what we do in each such case, if a person has left government, we make a recommendation to the department to confirm that they have flagged this contravention on the Provincial system, which is a national system, to flag the contravention. So if they want to take up employment in Western in government, if it's national or provincial government, that flag will appear, and we can the accounting officer can pursue that disciplinary action if necessary, if they find themselves away in. So that is a personal function that we insist the departments to execute, that it is on record, and we keep record of those contraventions. Then the Honourable America also asked a question on municipal cases. Chairperson, we support the Department of Local Government where necessary by means of tools, forensic tools, or otherwise where necessary, but that department has got some capacity to deal with cases in the municipal sphere of government. We had in the past, here and there, as an exception, conducted some work for them, but I think it's mostly a mandate issue. We have a mandate to investigate the provincial sphere of government. And when you want to go to the local sphere of government, you need to have a basis for an investigation, and that is only when the MEC of that department invokes Section 106 of the local government legislation. So we don't have, what I'm trying to say is we don't have inherent jurisdiction to go to municipalities and investigate there. But the short answer is they have some capacity, but we liaise with them, we support them. If they want some of our IT tools, you know, to these days you have to drill down into big data. So we've got those tools and we support them really where they need it. Honourable van der Westhuizen, I hope I answered your question, and I hope it gives some assurance. The first prize is, of course, if a person is in the employ, to charge that person and to have that disciplinary action conviction on record. But as I mentioned, if not, we keep record and we highlight that on the electronic system. Honourable Kego, yes, the first part of your question relates to also to that one section of your question, but then you also asked the important question of recovery of loss, and that is obviously a focus area for us, and it does not involve only the employees who are guilty of these contraventions, but also companies that do business with government. They are found wanting, that we want to recover the losses. So from a let's distinguish then again against the employees. If the employee is still in the employ of the state, and let's say if they are dismissed, it didn't happen in this 6 months, but it happened in previous years, then if that is on record, there is a process to withhold some of the pension money if a person is dismissed. So that is an option. Then there is the option of civil recovery from the employee concerned or the company concerned. But I agree with you, sometimes it is not worth throwing money after that, especially if you consider the value of it. But then there is a possible solution in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, where if the person or the persons, whether it's the director of the company or the former employee, is convicted in a criminal court, then there is a process in terms of sentence of that accused person that we as complainants and as government can ask that an order be made, especially if there's a suspended sentence that in respect of recovery of some of the money, and that has occurred in the past. So it is really a focus area for us. The other avenue is, of course, the important avenue of restriction of companies. We've done that in the past, and that is often where you hit them, the fraudsters, the most in their pocket if you restrict them from doing business with the state. So there are a few cases that we've gone through the process. And sometimes we are taken on review and there's litigation, but that is an important aspect of accountability for those who are involved in these kind of irregularities. I hope I covered all the questions, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fransberg. Honorable members, are there any follow-up questions or further points of clarity or something that you are not clear on? If there is none, let me make use of this opportunity, Mr. van Rensburg, to thank you. Just maybe before I allow you, I know we normally have these discussions with you always on an annual basis. You always update us, which is very good. And then maybe, and also as I see on the progress as well, because most of the time you just say it's just the case is either fraud, it's fraud or irregularities or criminal. I see in most cases you don't attach names. You just say it's cases. Is that in view of the confidentiality clause, or we are protecting the individuals that are involved? What is the reason maybe behind that?
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, we try to contain the information. I come prepared to these meetings. I've got a folder with information. If you have questions around a specific case, to give you some more detail, but we do not mention in these sessions the names of individuals or of companies, and for the reason, once we make an investigation finding and with recommendations, there are further processes. So there are disciplinary action and then court action. And until such time that is not completed, we don't want to jeopardize those processes like the criminal court processes by revealing the names of individuals involved. And also to protect government against litigation before those processes have been finalized. Once a case has been concluded in a criminal court, I will have no difficulty in sharing with you the names of any person involved there.
No problem. Thank you very much. Obviously, I know also the sensitivity around these issues of confidentiality and also not wanting to compromise the case beforehand. I'm glad that you are saying that when you come to this meeting, you come well prepared, and then there's always, if we want further inquiries on specific cases. So then at least in future, I know, and also it just also gives me satisfaction that we are not dealing with ghost cases. You know, it can, at least there are names, or not necessarily names, but there are individuals attached to it. And then in future, I will know that. And if maybe I'm curious or want to find out about a certain case, I'll just raise that. Thank you very much for that. I see Honorable Van der Steysen's hand.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. On this point, I do know that, unfortunately, in this country, these court cases can take many, many years to be finalized. And unfortunately, it seems to me we're experiencing the same often with disciplinary cases. And my question is just then, do you have what in some circles are called a court watch, where you keep track of some of your investigations so that you are able to also evaluate your own work and say, well, you know, we identified a case, we reported it, but on the one hand, we may be too sensitive. The courts rule not in line with what we thought, you know, the case would be, or alternatively, yes, of the 5 cases or 10 cases that we've reported to the courts after 5 years, you know, we've had an 80% conviction rate, or whatever the case might be. The correct words might be. So do you watch the process? Do you still follow that? Once you've handed it over to the departments for internal disciplinary hearings, once you have handed it over to the courts, etc. And would it be possible, perhaps in future, for us to get that kind of feedback as well? And I think I'm and Honourable Mvimbi are on the same sheet here, where we say, well, at least, you know, that would then allow us. We fully understand your concerns regarding jeopardizing future processes, but once, as you've indicated, those processes have been concluded, to give us also feedback to say, but these disciplinaries were finalized, these court cases were finalized, and we, because I think that is where you could tap yourself hopefully on the shoulder, say we've been instrumental in, in initiating efforts to safeguard this province from corrupt and irregular actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will then proceed to respond. Yes, Honourable van der Westhuizen, we do keep track of this. We do so by means of two processes. It's the one is an engagement by our investigator with the SAPS investigator on a quarterly basis, and then in addition to that, on a more strategic level, but to detect the progress of matters, there is a meeting with a team of the Hawks and of the NPA on a quarterly basis. In addition to that, when we receive that feedback, we feed it into our reporting system. So we feed it into the reports to the heads of department and to the heads of the audit committees, or to the 6 audit committees that we also account to. So we give some feedback in that respect. In terms of comparing our investigation finding with the outcomes of court cases, it can be an indicator, even though I would not rely 100% on that, because of the difference of angle. We report on our work from a zero tolerance perspective, but it might be what we find. Some of the evidence might be could reflect could be difficult to prove actually beyond reasonable doubt in a criminal court, that whilst it's easier to prove it in a disciplinary hearing where the standard of proof is lower. It all depends on the evidence that you have gathered. But most certainly the short answer to that is we keep track of that, we measure it. If we are concerned about, for instance, a decision that a prosecutor decided not to prosecute, and that if we feel that maybe there is something else that needs to be taken into consideration, then we ask for reasons and for an engagement. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Rensburg. I see Honorable Maseko's hand is up.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to find out from Mr. Van Rensburg. I think in the last time, one of the issues that we were trying to find out and have a solution was when there is an allegation of corruption from the officials and you find that they resigned before the case can be handled. And we were talking about how do you get that amount of money from the pension fund or any other thing. And we wanted to find out if there is something that maybe from the Premier's department or the forensics, you can empower you or become innovative in innovating yourself to be able to recover that money from that official. How far are we with that? Is there something that to that extent can you use, or you still are trying to do the research to say how can we go about? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. There are more than one avenue that one can use, and in that respect, and I think one of the avenues would be to, let's say if there is non-compliance, if it's merely a case of non-compliance, is for the department to enter into an agreement with the employee as the processes unfold for acknowledgement of debt of it and for repayment of that. That is the simple way of dealing with it, but it's maybe not always possible because of you need the consent of that person, of the employee. The other option is when you get judgment against the person, but it entails the approaching a court of law and following those processes. Those are the two ways in which I know of that money could be recovered from an employee. It's by means of a judgment or by means of an agreement. But it's not my area of expertise. I can try to find out if there's another administrative way. It will have to be provided by the pension fund rules in order to do so.
Any further comments, questions,
Yeah.
follow-ups
Yeah,
from
Chair.
honorable members? Okay, I see Honorable Maseko again.
Thank you very much. I think from the response, Mr. Van Rysburg, that means also to a certain extent, the departments, they have an onus of reacting quickly before, if that has to be implemented, before they can receive the resignation, because by that time you'll find that the official doesn't know to what an extent is the investigation really aligning him or her to that corruption or whatever that the case may be. But also that one of the pension fund, maybe it's one thing that we have to look at, because if a person has committed that corruption, will know that I have to resign quickly before anything can be instituted. So we have to have something, and it's one thing that we were saying, can we have something that empowers the departments to be able to recover their money? Because a person can come and do that corruption of a 2 million and just resign and go. There's no way that you can recover that money. Thank you, Chair.
Duly noted, Chairperson. Thank you, and we will certainly internally reflect on that again, and we will just verify if when we account to your honourable committee again that we've have the full picture and can confirm whether there's any other option. Thank you for those comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Rensburg. I see there are no further questions or hands. I don't see any hand. And I think that then that is all in order with honorable members. And then let me make use of this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Van Rensburg, for your availability. And then actually having given us a very fruitful update and very informative session on the investigations that is being done by your unit. Thank you very much. You may be excused. Thanks very much. Now, honorable members, we have finished with the presentations, and then we have met with the Department of Education, and then also we have also had the presentation from the forensic. Now, the next item on the agenda, maybe let's deal with resolution on this before we can deal with the issues of if there's another item on the agenda, I think it might be just an update on issues of APEC, if there are any, Mr. Davids. Now, honorable members, on the Department of Education, are there any proposals for resolutions that you'd like to make? If there's nothing, then on the issue of the forensic, I take it that we just note both the reports, really, both presentation. I see Honorable Maseko.
Yes, Chair, is to note those, and also maybe to hear, just to note, I don't know how to put this, but it's just to note for the issue of recovering the monies that might be misappropriated or where corruption is involved. Like I was talking to Mr. Van Rensburg about the pension fund. Is there anything that they can do research to see if they can be, the departments can be empowered to recover those monies from those officials that resigned before the cases are closed? So something to that effect. I don't know how to put it, but I know Dustin is there to assist. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Noted that, Honorable Maseko. Honorable Van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for responding a little bit late to your question regarding the WCED. I would like, and please guide me in this regard, if we could get a copy of the textbook management and retrieval procedure of the WCED. It seems to me there's been a circular according to their presentation here this morning, and I would like, and I presume that circular, spells out how principals should be managing the issuing and retrieval of textbooks. I unfortunately no longer have that presentation open in front of me, but Mr. Davids would get the right term for that policy that they, or procedure that they have there. I'm highly interested in getting a copy of that document and the procedure that they've now put in place to satisfy the requirements of the AG. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Van Westhuizen. Honorable America.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I note the potential resolution forwarded by Honorable Maseko. My view is for that to be effected, there must be a legal basis on which any institution can withhold or forfeit your pension in view of a particular legal outcome. And if an employee resigns, and a particular criminal matter had been sort of registered against that employee for the criminality, and the outcome thereof is in favor of the department, and certainly there is a basis for doing that. And perhaps in that context, we could ask the unit or the department, if one could call it that, under what legal circumstances can we withhold or to have persons resigning have their pensions for being sort of forfeited in lieu of the payment of the financial loss incurred by that department. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable America. I think your last part of your comments kind of summed up exactly what we can ask from the unit as to whether under which circumstances do do that rule apply where we can actually even withhold the pensions of the public servants. So I think there were basically then, in a way, then two issues really, if you agree with Honorable Maseko, is around the issue of we can get maybe some kind of an opinion or a policy as to under which circumstances pensions of public servants can be withheld when there are criminal cases or charges against them, or they have been found guilty on instances of fraud or corruption. I think the second one will be the issue of Honorable Van Stazen regarding the issue of the policy on textbooks. So I think Mr. Davis might have captured that well in your, so that if we can get that information, especially on the textbook, the policy on textbook distribution might actually assist. So I hope you've managed to capture that well, Honorable Davids. But before I can give you, Mr. Davids, can I just ask? I see Honorable Maseko's hand is up again.
No, Chair, I was agreeing with Member America, and again to indicate that I think this issue has been going on from the last term, has been going on for a very long time, that we sort of, the last term, have requested that the departments, they have to, when we do the annual reports, report of how are they mitigating that problem. But another thing that maybe it will sort of fast track it, that we get the information, is to the reporting system of the forensics also, to put pressure on the departments and also forensics is to the reporting system. If you have a case that has ended up in the with the police, when do you close that case? Like, we know our tracking document, there are issues that we deal with, and then it will be the issue is closed because we dealt with it. So with them, when do they say the case number 2001B is closed? And what is the outcome? How do they report it at the end? Is it with the police, then they close it? Or that person has been found guilty, is in jail, close it? Or we have recovered that 250,000, that case is closed. So something to that effect. How do we make them to also have the reporting system that can inform us as the scoper to say this case is closed? And that will put forensic the pressure of also trying to have mitigating factors with the departments to make sure that they react accordingly and on time to recover the monies from the departments. I hope it makes sense, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko. Definitely makes a lot of sense to me. Mr. David, did you manage to capture some of these issues that we've raised?
Yes, Chairperson, everything has been captured, Chair. I will start drafting communication to the departments, and I'll also put it on the minutes of today's meeting, Chair.
So I will take that, especially the one that revolve around policies. Once that has been received, it will just be duly sent to the members.
Yes, Chair.
The members.
You are correct, Chairperson. As the information comes through, Chair, I normally immediately email everyone, well, all the members with information that comes from the departments.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. David. Having done with resolution, honorable members, the next item then, Mr. Davids, will be the quarterly reports.
Yes, Chairperson. Chairperson, I've forwarded the quarterly reports, Chairperson, to all the members, Chair, and then there's also the minutes of the 4th of May. That's our last meeting that we had, Chairperson. On the 4th of May, I've got that ready, Chair, just for the members to go through and to adopt. And then also, Chair, there's the Scopa Legacy Report, Chairperson, which we normally do every year this time, Chair, which is basically just an overview of each quarter, just a paragraph on each quarter, who the committee met with, etc., Chairperson. So I have that also ready for the members, Chair. But Chair, I will just open just a quarterly for just the third quarter, Chair, As you indicated, Chair. There we go, Chair. Can you see it?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So, Chairperson, here is the quarterly and members. Here's the quarterly report. I've sent it to everyone via WhatsApp and email. It's from October to December, Chairperson. Chairperson, if you see under number 1, the committee membership, Chair, there hasn't been any changes to the committee membership. It's in the 4th quarter, Chairperson, that I will display after this report where we just indicate that there was a change in committee membership, Chairperson, from member Bartman to member van der Westhuizen, Chair. And then just normally, Chair, number 3 is our mandate. And that's according to the WCPP standing rules, Chair. And then just the overview, Chair, just a high level writing, just to say that the committee met with 9 departments, Chairperson, to conduct oversight over the annual reports, Chair.
Maybe I'm sure maybe Honorable van der Westhuizen want us to deal with it as we deal with it page by page.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. May I just point out on page 2, under point 3, the mandate of the committee, there's a problem with the numbering of those paragraphs. Normally under, paragraph 3, the first one would be 3.1.
Okay.
And not 2.1. And then also, a little bit lower down on that page, it jumps from 2.6 to 2.9. And perhaps Mr. Davids would just attend to the numbering. By the way, Chair, the same also applies to the next report that we are going to consider.
Perfect. Thank you, member. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable van der Westhuizen.
So I will just then attend to these numberings, Chairperson. Thank you for that, member. Then, Chair, just as I indicated, is just for the 9 departments, Chairperson. And then, Chair, for number 5 is normally, we will normally put all the departments that report to this committee, Chairperson, as well as all of the entities, Chairperson. Chair, and then basically for the meetings that we held, we had 9 meetings. It's basically from each of the from the SCOPA resolutions document, Chairperson. I've just captured all of the resolutions that we've taken, Chair, and then how many members. There were no members of the public. Sorry for that. Let me just make that right. And then the attendance from the departmental officials, Chairperson. This is just on the days that we met all of the different departments, Chair. And then, Chair, this is just the table of the members' attendance, Chair, as per all of these meetings that we had, Chairperson. I've captured all of those that I've captured in my book. Normally, when we have our meetings virtually, I will capture the attendance of the members in my meeting book, and as well as from the minutes, Chair, everything corresponds there. There we go. And then, Chairperson, there were no meetings that was postponed. It was only those 3 meetings for the next year, Chairperson, but it hasn't been, for the 3 departments that we had, Chair, for February. But it hasn't been scheduled, Chairperson, during the 3rd quarter of the annual reports, which means that we didn't have to cancel any of those meetings, Chair. So there were no meetings that were postponed or cancelled, Chair. NCOP legislation, normally SCOPA don't sit with legislation, Chair. We didn't do any oversight visits. We didn't have any interprovincial visits, Chair. International study tours for last year, nothing. And invites, Chairperson. Normally it's from APAC or SATCO-PAC. There was nothing, Chairperson, last year for the 3rd quarter. Workshops, nothing, Chair. We don't deal with the appropriations. Annual reports, Chair, we normally see table 7, which is all of the meetings that we had, Chair. And then, Chairperson, it was just the expenditure that we had, Chairperson, for up until the end of December, Chair. We spent 30,000, and that's normally going with the adverts of the annual report, etc., Chairperson, and that is the balance that we set with 49,000, Chair. And that's it, Chairperson, for the 3rd quarter.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Can we have proposal for the adoption of the report? Honorable America.
Chair, I propose that we adopt the report with the corrections as suggested by Honorable van der Westhuizen.
Thank you very much, Honorable America. Honorable Maseko.
I second that with those amendments.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, if I can just go, Chair, to the fourth quarter. Thank you for that, members. Then as Member van der Westhuizen indicated with those there's some numbering issues that I will have to attend to, Chairperson, after this meeting, Chair. Which I will before you sign off this report, Chair. Chair, for the fourth quarter, Chair, between January and March this year, Chair, there's the indication. There's Member van der Westhuizen, Chairperson. Just a word there, just a wording for future references, ATC 19/2022. And then, Chairperson, once again, I will just work on these numbering, Chairperson, for the mandate. It's the same as for the third quarter, Chairperson. Chair, then it's just a high-level overview of the 4 departments, Chairperson. Once again, the same with departments that reports and entities reports is the same as with the third quarter, Chairperson. Nothing changes there. Chairperson, you will see, and members, that we met with 4 departments, but there's 5 meetings. So the 5th meeting is basically where the committee met in March, on the 14th of March, to adopt its resolutions report. Here you will see it. 14th of March, it was an in-committee meeting, and it was basically for the consideration of the scope of resolution documents, Chairperson. And then we have this other 4 meetings that was basically with the other departments on the annual report, Chair. Chair, there once again, it's the table of the members' attendance in according to my notes, my meeting book, as well as with the official minutes, adopted minutes of the committee, Chairperson, for all of these days, Chairperson. Chair, then meetings postponed, cancelled. There was nothing, Chairperson. Under number 9, once again, number 10, Chair, there was no NCOP. There was no legislation that we've done, Chairperson, as the committee. We normally don't deal with legislation. There was no oversights, no interprovincial, Chairperson. The international study tours, nothing, Chairperson. And then, Chair, just the invite, Chairperson, there was just the Association of Public Accounts Committee. They had their meeting in our parliamentary chamber on the 10th to the 11th of March, Chairperson. That was an EXCO meeting, Chair. So that invite was not circulated to the rest of the membership, Chairperson, because it was only all of the chairpersons of the various scopers of the 9 legislatures that were requested to attend that meeting, Chairperson. Chair, workshops, we've also put that under the workshops, Chairperson, or conferences attended by yourself, Chair. And there were no funds that was used from our part for this meeting. The catering, everything came from the APAC, Chairperson. All that they requested from us was just to secure the venue, which we did, which did not cost us anything, Chairperson. Chairperson, we don't deal with the Western Cape adjustments, appropriations. Annual report, once again, we just say, please see the table 7 above, Chair. And then, Chairperson, just our end of year expenditure, Chair. We've been we've basically had change of almost 40,000 Rand, Chairperson, at the end of the financial year, Chairperson. And that's it for the 4th quarter, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davids. Can we have proposals for the adoption of the report? Honorable America.
Chair, I propose that we adopt the report.
Thank you very much, Honorable van der Westhuizen.
Second that proposal.
Thank you very much. Report duly adopted.
Thank you for that, Chair. Just two more documents, Chair. If you would please indulge me, Chair, and members of the committee. It's basically just our minutes, Chair. I'm not sure if I forwarded to the membership. If I haven't, please accept my sincerest apology, Chair. I just want to locate that one, Chairperson. There we go. There's the minutes. Can the membership see it, Chair?
Yes, you can.
We can see.
Thank you, members. So it's basically just our last meeting that we had, the 4th of May. We've got our attendance. All of the members were in the meeting, and then basically I've just indicated that Member Klego and Member van der Westhuizen joined us virtually, Chairperson, in that meeting. It's basically, let me just change that, Chairperson. So the Premier gave an apology and Minister Maynier gave an apology because there were cabinet meetings. Normally the cabinet meetings are on a Wednesday, Chair. So with most of the scope of meetings, we will find apologies from the members, from the cabinet members, Chair, because they need to attend cabinet meetings, Chair. Chair, then basically it was just where the departmental officials briefed us, Chair. That was there who were the officials that basically briefed us, Chairperson. And then we adopted the committee minute of the 14th of March, Chairperson. And then there were matters arising, Chair. We've basically indicated, the members indicated, Member Maseko asked, can we have this as a standing committee, Chair, as a standing item on all of our programs going forward, Chair, which I, through your indulgence, Chair, and your permission, I've put it on our agenda items going forward, Chairperson. Then, Chair, for the plan study tours, Chair, once this minutes has been signed by your hand today, Chairperson, I've already started talking to some of the legislators, Chair, but we just need this minutes, Chair, for the expenditure of finances, etc., booking tickets, etc. For our visits to Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, and then to the Parliament of Rwanda, Chairperson. I will also just after you've signed these minutes, Chairperson, if it's adopted this morning, I will have to I will just have to, or I'm waiting for some of them just to give their parliamentary programs, so that when we get there, then they actually have scope of meetings, Chairperson, and we're not sitting there and there's nothing happening, Chair. So that's with the plan pack study tour, Chairperson, and then there's just the resolutions that we had, Chairperson. The first one was a report from the Departments of Human Settlements, Transport and Public Works, including the Auditor General, on the supply management processes that was followed in allowing the usage of the services of the Red Ants relocation services between the two departments, Chair, and then as well that Provincial Treasury issue prescripts to the departments and entities of the Western Cape Government to guide on shared contractual agreements between departments. And 7.2 basically speaks to 7.1, Chair, where the Provincial Treasury indicated that they would issue prescripts, Chairperson, to the departments on how to avoid a recurrence of this finding of the Auditor General regarding the red ants between the Department of Human Settlements and Transport and Public Works, Chairperson.
Thank you. Okay, those were the minutes, honorable members. Any proposals for the adoption of the minutes or any matters arising? Honorable Maseko.
Chair, I propose that we adopt the minutes.
Thank you very much. Seconder.
Seconder, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable America. Then Mr. Davids, do you have, I suppose you've got an item about APEC. Are there any updates that you can give us on APEC?
Chair, just one more issue, Chair. Is it fine with the members, Chairperson, if I can just flood just our annual activities report before we go to the thingies, Chairperson? Okay. Chair, let me just share that quickly. Just that one document, Chair. And then there we go.
Thank you.
Okay, Chairperson, members, thank you. Basically, this is just a combination of all of our quarterly reports, Chairperson. It's nothing fancy. There's nothing really controversial that through your guidance, Chairperson, that was written in this report. It was basically just how many meetings did we have for the year, for the last financial year, and basically who we met with, and then basically just mentioning one or two resolutions that we've asked this department for this for this document, or we passed this resolution, Chairperson, just to give it some meat, Chairperson. So, Chair, once again for the members, there was an indication there, Chairperson, of Member Bartman and Member van der Westhuizen of the change that occurred towards the end of the financial year, Chairperson, on the 28th of February, Chair. Once again, Chair, here's our standing rule, a WCPP that we normally put in our quarterly reports as well, Chair. The reporting departments, Chairperson. We've got the reporting entities, Chairperson, all of them. Chair, for the year under review, for the 2021-22 financial year, Chair, we had 20 meetings, Chair. That is annual report meetings as well as normal standing committee meetings, Chairperson. And then, Chair, this will basically just be for our first quarter, Chair, where we say with who we met, Department of Social Development. These were all of the annual reports that we had, Chairperson. That was last year now. We met with the Department of Health and all of that, Chairperson. We engaged the Department of Human Settlements on his inspections, Chair. And then the Department of Agriculture as well, Chairperson, and then CACEDRA as well. We met with CACEDRA on the BBEE, Chairperson, regulations. Then we also go over to the second quarter, Chairperson. Once again, we met with CACEDRA on the 3rd of September, and we met with DDAT, Chairperson, and the Premier on the societal impact, etc. And that was on the agenda for that meeting, Chairperson. I think that was on the 27th of August, Chairperson. Then we say for the third and fourth quarter, Chair, that we basically met with all of the departments, Chairperson, on the annual reports, Chair. That's for the third and the fourth quarters. And then basically, Chair, we just say that you attended 3 APAC meetings, Chairperson, and 1 SATCOPAC meeting, Chairperson. That was the one that you had in Zimbabwe, Chair. Legislation, Chair, we didn't deal with any legislation, Chair. Public participation, as the same with this meeting today, Chair. All of our meetings are public meetings, Chairperson. That's open to the public, Chairperson, and the members of the public can engage with the committee via YouTube, Chair. As you know, all of our meetings, Chair, you would ask me to check if there's any input from the members of the public, Chair. I normally will just go over while I'm in the meeting. I'll go to the YouTube page just to see if there's any comments, Chair, and then report back to this committee, Chair. So that's the public participation. And then, Chairperson, basically as per the fourth quarter report, Chair, that we've just adopted, it was basically what was our finances, Chair, what was the financial allocation, or what we've spent, Chairperson, 40,000, and then there was a balance, balance change of about 40,000 for this financial year, Chair. And that's basically it for our legacy, our annual activities report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mr. David. Any proposals for the adoption, Honorable America?
Chair, I propose that we adopt the report.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko.
I second the proposal, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko.
Thank you, Chairperson and members, for that. Chair, I'm ready to just speak to the APAC matter, Chair, for the members. Yes. Yes. Okay, I just want to get that email quickly, Chairperson. All right, so let me just share this for the membership, Chair. There we go. Chair, so this is a chair next Wednesday, Chair. The AG will come and brief all of the members and all of the staff, Chairperson, on the masterclass or on this issue, where they basically call it a masterclass, Chair. It is a 2-hour session, Chair. I have sent this on to the on the 17th of May. I've sent it to the office of the secretary for them to just circulate to the whole institution. Hopefully it will be forwarded or via the communication unit, Chairperson. They normally send it to everyone in the institution. Basically, where the AG indicated that they will basically next Wednesday come to do this masterclass, Chair. And it is basically to provide the members and staff with deep insights into the amended power of the Auditor General, while also empowering members to provide the required oversight and analysis skills to identify material irregularities that was issued in departments and entities for the Western Cape government. So, Chair, that will be a hybrid meeting in the parliamentary chamber between 1 and 3 next Wednesday, Chairperson. But also, Chair, why I am mentioning this, Chair and members, is that the APAC is having exactly the same thing as we speaking this morning, Chair. They are also having a APAC. They've actually emailed me on Monday afternoon, late afternoon, to say that they're having this masterclass for all of the SCOPA members in all of the legislatures, Chair. It was basically what they said, that they will let us know about the times. Then they emailed us all on Monday afternoon to say that they've basically identified this time for this morning between 9 and 12 or 9 and 1. And I've indicated to them via email that we have a SCOPA meeting this morning during the exact same time when the masterclass is happening. But Chairperson, I've also indicated to them that the AG Western Cape is having the exact same meeting with us next Wednesday, only for WCPP, which the Secretariat of APAC indicated that it's fine with them. They don't have any issues with that, Chairperson. Furthermore, Chair, on the matter of APAC, there's no further information with regards to future meetings. I have asked Simon to forward me just a schedule of, especially of the COD meetings, Chairperson, where 3 of our members must attend Council of Delegate meetings, Chair, so that we can also, it's also requested of me by the institution just to project financially, so that when the time comes for the members to go to Joburg or to Pretoria, that it has been appropriated for, or it has been projected for by WCPP. I'm still waiting for that, Chair. I will probably, by tomorrow, Chair, I will send Simon another follow-up email just to ask for that program, Chair, for the rest of the year, so that I can inform the members of the COD meetings, the Council of Delegate meetings that 3 of our members must attend at APAC, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Now, Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I think I'm happy with the one of the Auditor General, and I think maybe also it will help us to deal with this issue of the consequence management that has been going on, to be empowered of now. How far are they? But another thing, Dustin, that I'm trying to find out, like we go to the meetings, whether being Pretoria and Joburg, and I think it was not happening during the COVID, and now things have changed. It's slightly going back to normal. Now, automatically, that means that that trip is going to happen. So why is it important that you wait for the program from the APAC and not put it in our budget to be a standard allocation, because now you will have to depend on the APEC or every financial year for that, whilst we know that before COVID it was something that was happening every year. Why don't you just put it in to be just a standard of, we know that that will happen?
Thank you, Honourable Maseko. Through you, Chair, Honourable Maseko and members, I have done that. Normally, we must give projections through a business plan to the manager of committee section, Mr. Mario Sessman, and we have done that. I've normally, or what I've done, the end of March for this financial year that we've put or that we're in, I've actually put down one Council of Delegate meeting and one EXCO meeting where only the chairperson attends. I've put that down for each quarter. So, but I unfortunately cannot give exact dates of when in that quarter those meetings are going to happen. But it definitely has been put into our SCOPA financial projections, which goes to the finance department of WCPP for their noting and for their allocation and preparation of just basically allocation of funds. So should those meetings come during that quarter, then we can just use of those indicated funds, member. So I have put it down for the second, because we normally have in September also a lot of APAC meetings. So I've put down a possible SATCO-PAC meeting, which I don't know where we're going to go to. They will probably let us know APAC will let us know by July. And then I've also put down for September one COD meeting and one EXCO meeting, and the same with normally they will invite us November as well for a COD and an EXCO meeting, and the same with February/March next year. Then they will also invite us, member. So I've basically projected for all of those quarters, member.
Can I ask through you, Chair? I'm sorry. I just want to find out now that on our minutes, the last minutes, we indicated that we want to do something that is different of an oversight going to other provinces, including also the Rwanda. Did you project for that? Because something that is unique. Did you also do, when budgeting, did you project for those oversight trips that might happen? Or you think what is now in the budget will cover everything?
Member, I normally project so that we basically for worst case scenario. So these funds that I've projected for, it will most probably just make it just because, as I say, in some of the quarters, like I've put down for some quarters where we must fly twice now to Pretoria in a quarter. Now sometimes those meetings do not occur. Then there's that money is then used for other purposes. So just to answer you, member, on your question, yes, where there's no APAC meetings, member, during some quarters, it will cover just for these special trips of SCOPA now, member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davids, and thank you very much, Honorable Maseko, for those inquiries. Now, honorable members, I think we've actually dealt with most of all our issues and the items that we're supposed to have dealt with this year, and also this last update on issues of APEC, which was what we've resolved on, that we would like the issue of APEC to be a standard item on our SCOPA meeting, which is, I think, it's a good idea. But also, Mr. Davids, can I also request that sometimes there is some correspondence that do come from APEC where they require, for example, I suppose this one is more administrative, really, this one of the researchers that have to attend to those workshops and so on. Maybe in future, when there are some correspondence actually involving us as members, I think next time we must just send it also to all the other members of the Public Account Committee so that they can be abreast and be informed about what is happening at that level.
Most definitely, Chair.
Sure, thank you. Then, honorable members, if there is no further issues or questions or comment of points of clarity, let me make use of this opportunity, honorable members, to thank you for your availability and also for always making time to attend to SCOPA issues. Thank you very much, honorable members. The meeting is now closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well done.
Goodbye, Chair.